Okay, we have quorum.
Oh, good. With that, we will start off the meeting of the Yolo Animal Services Planning Agency of July 28th. Thank you all for being here. The first item is to consider
Appropriate.
I brought in my own
How appropriate is that?
my own piped-in animal. Goodness gracious. I'm trying to see if someone will move approval of the agenda.
I will move approval. Carson.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Is there a second?
Second, Cowan.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Julie, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Member Carson,
Carson, I.
Member Cowan,
Aye.
Member Vega or Member Landsberg. Absent, and Member Sandy.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. That then moves us to, let's see, action item 1, which is to authorize remote teleconference, video conference. Wait just a second. Oh, I see. Okay. Authorize remote teleconference, video conference meetings pursuant to AB 361 by finding that the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency is ongoing and meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees. Is there a motion to approve that?
Well, I will so move.
All right, Dan moved. Is there a second?
Second, Cowan.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Julie, would you call the roll, please?
Member Carson,
Carson, I.
Member Cowan,
Aye.
Member Vega or Landsberg. Absent, Member Sandy.
All right.
Motion passes.
All right, the next action item is to receive and file the minutes of June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Carson.
Second and Cowan.
All right, famous vaudeville team. Julie, will you please call the roll?
Member Carson,
Carson, I.
Member Cowan,
Cowan, aye.
Member Vega or Landsberg. Absent, Member Sandy.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And then item 5 is a receive and file correspondence received by this organization or forwarded to it through a series of emails. They were not included with the prior agenda since all correspondence was received subsequent to the public posting of that 6/30/2022 meeting. So is there a motion in that regard, please? To approve those? Receive and
So
file.
moved, Cowan.
Thank you.
And Carson seconds.
All right, Julie, apologize one more time.
No problem here. Member Carson,
Carson, I.
Member Cowan,
Aye.
Member Vega or Landsberg. Absent, Member Sandy.
All right.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you all. That brings us finally to public comments, which is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Yolo Animal Services Planning Agency on subjects related to our agency's business and not otherwise on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Is there any public comments today?
I see 2 hands raised.
Good.
First, we have Cindy.
Hello, Sydney. Welcome.
Hello. Okay, I go ahead. I've never spoken at one of these.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, please. We can hear you loud and clear. And if you would just let us know what your thoughts are, we'd be appreciative.
Okay, sure. Well, first off, my name is Cindy Schneider, and I'm here today to strongly urge the Joint Powers Agency to move forward in building a new shelter in Yolo County. And I think that this has been way overdue, and minimum of 20 years overdue. So I'd really like to emphasize that I'm for it. I first got involved in this effort way back in 2004 when Helen Thompson had a meeting in West Sacramento with people from the Vet Med Teaching Hospital, dog trainers, veterinarians, and of course, Helen Thompson was there. And we, at that time, discussed how we were overdue in getting a new shelter. And sadly, we still have that same outdated, damp, dark, and inadequate shelter today. And we have animals that get sick easier, that are stressed because of it, and don't do well in the current facility overall, which makes it difficult to get them out and adopted and into new homes. And I really feel that with the Vet Med Teaching Hospital in our county, and that we have state of the art, we have great vets here, but our current situation, I think we should really be ashamed of. And I think that we're not doing due justice to the animals in our community. And so I would just like to say that I'm 100%, and as well as my husband, Kevin Hanks, 100% in support of getting a new building, paying for that building. We're buying a lot of other things. I'd like our money to go towards getting that building. And I think this would help out with pet adoptions and pet health. And so I'd really just want to emphasize that I'm for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for calling in. We appreciate your thoughts. All right, is there another speaker?
We have Eileen Zemetz.
Eileen, good afternoon.
Hi, good morning, or I should say good afternoon. I just want to confirm, will there be an opportunity for public comment after the staff report? Because I don't see that on the agenda, because you're asking for comments right now of stuff that may not be on the agenda. Is that correct?
That's right. So now is public comment, but after that item, I will allow for additional public comment specific to that item.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eileen.
You bet. Thank you.
Anyone else?
We have Ann Kokalis.
Hello?
Hi, I just had to unmute myself. I'm new to this. I'm very new to this program here.
That's all right.
I
That's all
want-
right. You're
I
doing
want
fine.
to emphasize what the person spoke about with all the need for the animal shelter. I just want to support and say I think we do need a new animal shelter. I have not been to this animal shelter very many times, but I do know it's in pretty bad condition. So I would like to see a new animal shelter be built and support as much as I can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate the call in. Is there anyone else?
I see no other hands raised, but I do have 3 written comments that
Okay.
people have asked for to be read into the record. The first is from Evelyn Dale. Her comments are that it is time to build a new animal shelter for Yolo County Animal Services. The current shelter buildings are much too old, way too small, and clearly outmoded. Yolo County's homeless animals await the changes needed to provide them with a safe and humane shelter. We can and should do better for Yolo County's homeless animals. I believe Yolo County residents support building a new animal shelter that would serve our community better, and am confident that the JPA for Animal Services can find a way to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Next, from Julie Lonnie Chang. Ms. Chang says, I am a board member of Unleashing the Possibilities, Inc., a Davis nonprofit created to fundraise and support the new Animal Services Center. I would like to add my supporting email to the list. I was a shelter volunteer for many years, a certificated dog trainer, and am active in raising awareness about animal welfare in general and in Davis in particular. I believe in a facility that can provide resources and support to our pets loving community. YCAS is doing a great job with a less than ideal facility. However, the displaced animals waiting and looking for their forever home would benefit greatly from a new structure that can provide them with better physical and emotional help. Thank you for your consideration.
Good.
Finally, one from Odette Christensen. I have been volunteering at the Yolo County Animal Shelter for more than 3 years. I am very impressed by the people who work and volunteer there. The YCAS is full of people who care about animals and are very knowledgeable and experienced. Unfortunately, the facilities are outdated and embarrassing. We need to stop talking and start doing something about providing our animals and our people, serving them with a decent facility. And that is all the written comment.
Odette taught one of the Sandy children, one or more, I can't remember. So she's just having a great responsibility on her shoulders. It's good to hear from all those people. Thank you. Does
And
that
no more hands
conclude-
raised.
Okay, no hands raised.
Oh,
We-
sorry. We had one popped up and then back down. Leah Rosenberg, would you like to speak?
Oh, hey, Leah. Leah, did you want to speak?
You can unmute if you'd like to
Okay.
speak.
Okay, now am I?
There you are. Yes,
Oh, good.
perfect.
Oh, wow. I got through this whole process. This is amazing. I gotta tell you. I'm Leah Rosenberg and I have been on the board for Unleashing the Possibilities since day one. So you have my complete support to make it work, and whatever fundraising we need to do, I'm there. So I'm in total support of the new animal services that we would like to provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Good to hear from you.
Can't believe this.
We feel the same way about Zoom.
All right, with that, no additional hands at this time.
Okay. Our new county administrator could not be with us today, so I think we will. Did you have anything that you needed to say, Jill, or are you just monitoring the meeting then?
No, he just expressed his apologies for missing it, but looks forward to coming in August to meet all of you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8 is a receive staff update on follow-up items in the June 30th JPA meeting and provide staff direction as needed. And please, will one of you remind me to also take public comment after that matter? Thank you. All right, Joanne, please.
So thank you so much, Joanne Van Hoosier from the Yolo County Administrator's Office. I'm a management analyst. And the previous conversation with the Yolo County Animal Sheltering and Welfare Partners was really productive and raised a lot of great ideas. And so I wanted to follow up on that discussion and provide some additional information. And then also, let me click to my next slide. And this just quickly, I'll post these slides as well. Just orienting ourselves in our current JPA work plan. We're in the phase where we're creating a plan for moving forward. And the timeline we've set is from June to December 2022. So today we'll be following up on topics raised at the June 30th JPA meeting, which include partnership opportunities with the Yolo County Spay and Neuter Group, an update on the status of review of actual on-site veterinary services hours. And also I'll be providing some information on possible jurisdictions for additional review, including site visits for the JPA members, as well as inviting some of these jurisdictions to be discussion panelists at a future JPA meeting. So just an update, we will be providing a more detailed review of the actual on-site veterinary services hours. I've obtained the information that I need to do that analysis. And so I'll be putting that together, cross-referencing things and putting together analysis. So I'm hopeful to have this at our next meeting. Staff is also finalizing an agreement for an update of the prior architectural studies to obtain updated estimates for the previous architectural designs. So back in 2016, the county had a design services contract with Indigo Architects. And so we're in the process of getting kind of a quick review to refresh those numbers since they're 2016 construction numbers, and to kind of integrate current animal intakes and any changes in animal sheltering philosophy that's happened between then and now. And so staff is working on that, and hopefully we'll have an additional update at the next JPA meeting.
What's your timeline for that, Joanne, for getting those numbers back and reported out?
The agreement should be signed within the next week or two. And then I think it would be 30 to 45 days for the updated information. So it'll be a fairly rapid turnaround since it's the same architect as previously, updating and refreshing those. But, you know, if anything needs to be, you know, scaled down because of changes in the environment, and in particular, taking another look at ways that the existing site might be used in terms of renovating buildings. So it'll be fairly rapid once the agreement is signed.
Will they be working with you and Stephanie on that?
Yes.
Okay.
And we initiated the monthly staff working group meeting. So this includes a representative from each jurisdiction that contracts for services with Yolo County Animal Services. We had our first meeting in July, and those will be a monthly recurring meeting for better coordination, gathering information, coming up with ideas and possible ideas to implement for improved operations. Will be a recurring monthly meeting. And then,
Does that include, excuse me for interrupting you, does that include the city of West Sacramento?
yes, it does.
Okay, good.
West Sacramento and also a representative from UC Davis.
Oh, good. Okay.
Joanne,
Yes.
excuse me, to the chair.
Yes,
Joanne, can I ask who that representative is for Winners?
Sure, it's Chief Miller.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Mhm. And then Stephanie has a brief update. One of the exciting partnership opportunities that was discussed at the prior meeting was increasing our partnership with the Yolo County Spay and Neuter Group. And so Stephanie just has a brief update on that status.
Yes, thank you. I spoke with Amanda Hartman, and they are almost complete with the duct work for the clinic. So they talked to people who have used it before and some problems that they had. So they're trying to work out everything so that way it, when it does get into operation, that there aren't any problems. So they're working on changing a few things. They do have a veterinarian that is interested in working a few days a week. So they're just working on the licensing, being a DEA license and premise permit. And John Ramming is going to be providing me, which then I will provide to you, to Joanne, and to the group, the needs for water and sewage hookup. So that's if we were able to house this clinic, let's say next door, or if they needed, like, I know they looked at the fairgrounds, what are the requirements? So that's what they're going to work on, because they do need to hook up to water and sewage. So they're still getting things, they're moving things along, and yeah, getting closer.
that's John Ramming.
Yes, and Amanda Hartman.
Of
Oh,
the Yolo
okay.
County Spay and Neuter Group.
Gotcha. Okay.
Supervisor Provenza?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you for your report. I had a few questions on the on-site veterinary service hours. Will you be reporting on that at our next meeting?
The plan is to do that at the next JPA meeting, correct?
Yeah, okay. And if you have it beforehand, it would be good to see before the meeting. Also, would it be possible to provide a copy of our contract with UC Davis for the veterinarian services?
Yes, I can provide links to that.
Thank you. That would be really helpful. In terms of looking at the costs of renovation versus new construction, I'm thinking of something in the middle, because one possibility we've talked about is doing some renovation with the idea that we would still build a new shelter, kind of a middle ground rather than a one versus the other. Will this study contemplate that possibility?
That's the hope, that we would get, because Indigo did, the architects presented several scenarios. One was the design for an entirely new shelter, and there was a design that renovated an existing fire station and other ideas. And so we'll be getting a refresh of that, full new construction of the shelter, but also having the architects really look at the existing site and buildings for potential reuse or expansion on site.
Because it might be a little bit different if you were just going to renovate and not do a new shelter. That would be a more extensive renovation. But my thought is we probably are going to need a new shelter. I think we definitely are going to need a new shelter. So the renovation is short term versus long term on the shelter. But with all the support, hopefully not too long term, but with all the support for a new shelter and people willing to raise funds, having an actual building or plan that they can raise funds around is really important to be able to do fundraising on the private side. Because I think what we had envisioned was government support, but at the same time, some private fundraising. And that will all come into place only if we have something on the table.
That will be absolutely necessary. That's right, Jim. It'll have to be some mix of funds in order to succeed. I wasn't sure if I didn't hear, I thought I heard you say that they were looking at other sites off of the current site, but did I misunderstand you?
I don't know if it would be any specific site off the current site, so it would be more infill development, if you will.
I thought I heard you say something about a fire station or something.
Oh, yes, in the prior study, they gave a potential design for reusing, I think, fire station number 3 in Woodland. And so that station is still in use, and there's no
Right.
current in progress construction on a new fire station. And so the previous renovation was based on that fire station building.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got you.
Oh, one other question I had, and this maybe goes beyond the architecture. At the current location, there is some county-owned land, I guess, with probation, that's possible site for a new shelter or expanded shelter. But do we need to do anything to make sure that land remains available into the future if we're seriously considering a shelter there?
Well, I think there are some proposed uses, and so it'll be, I think, a process of making the architect aware of those proposed uses and just presenting all of the information to the boards and JPA so that they can make an informed decision on how they'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Member Carson?
questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I heard correctly, you'll use for the purpose of estimating the costs of renovation or a new shelter, the current caseloads. In our discussions, we've heard things that indicate that the numbers could go both ways. So I've understood you to say, once we're beyond COVID, it's possible that that could increase our activity and numbers on the one hand. On the other hand, we've heard suggestions that, for example, if we are able to pull off a successful effort on spay, neuter, and other educational programs, there may be room for each of our jurisdictions, including Davis, to reduce the shelter burden that our respective communities are creating. Where that leads me to wonder is, will there be any sort of sensitivity analysis or alternatives analysis in both renovation and a new shelter that takes into account a scenario where we end up needing more shelter beds than we need now, or on the other hand, where we might need less?
Certainly. So part of the update will be the architects. They previously, in designing the original design, conferred with the correct shelter medicine program on capacity for care and the size of facility that they were recommending. And so that capacity need study is going to be updated and taken into consideration. So I imagine they're probably going to look at the past tendencies for intakes, the recent changes due to COVID, and then things like general estimates of population growth in taking a look at that. Stephanie, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, and also, thank you. The animal sheltering as an industry, we are looking to find ways to improve how people, have access to the healthcare for their pets and things like that. So that would keeping animals out of the shelter. So I think we are going to look at, like Joanne said, updating based on our capacity for care, but also taking into account that where we think the industry is going, and really just everyone is struggling to find that balance. But I do feel like that'll be taken into consideration, like programs, and we talked about spay neuter, but there's some other things that I think really changing what people's perception of what the shelter really, what the purpose is and what animal services can do. So I think that's all going to be taken into consideration.
I just think, since a very large part of our discussion these last few months has been about operational improvements, that could divert population and avoid some of the tragedy that's going on out there, I think we should try to make sure that at least one alternative view of what our capital needs are, short-term or long-term, should reflect that we are able to implement a successful set of operational changes. But again, that shouldn't be the only alternative we consider. I quite agree.
Other questions? If not, then I'll open it up for public comment.
Oh, and I have some additional
Oh,
items
thought
just to
I
share.
thought you were
And
done. I apologize. Go
oh,
ahead.
no, actually, just a few more. So one of the things that we discussed was having JPA members either, well, not an either or thing, potential site visits to other jurisdictions, and also bringing in a panel of experts from other jurisdictions to share some of their information and, that we could potentially use to make our decisions as we determine whether to start an operational JPA or, the different operating models that we've been discussing. So these are 3 jurisdictions that I wanted to present for the consideration of the JPA. The first is El Dorado County Animal Services. They have a similar total population to Yolo. They have a bigger area, and a lot of it is national forest. And they sort of have, a 2-sided county because of their geography. But they have a similar total population. The El Dorado County Animal Services provides services countywide via contract with the cities. And they are interesting because they're currently evaluating the organizational placement of animal services, which is one thing that we're considering, where's the right place in the organization for the animal services in Yolo County. The El Dorado County Animal Services is under their Health and Human Services Agency. However, they feel that that agency has grown too large and unwieldy, and so they're considering making a Department of Community Services that would include functions like animal services. And so that could be an interesting perspective to get, both in having animal services be a component of a Health and Human Services Agency versus spinning out into a different department. That's one option. And what I could foresee if we chose to do an expert panel is 2 to maybe 3 outside experts and a hour-and-a-half discussion like we had last time, but focusing on 2 or 3 other jurisdictions to really allow lots of discussion with those individuals. Sutter Animal Services Authority is a JPA, full service JPA for the entire county. Their population is smaller, it's about 100,000. Their staff are employees of Yuba City. So it's a JPA, but it's essentially operated out of Yuba City. There's a consultant group, I'm sure there are many, but Citygate Associates seems to be a pretty prominent consultant in doing JPA analysis for animal services and public-private partnerships. And so I was just reading a report that they released last year for City of Pasadena and other jurisdictions. They were considering doing a JPA. And, while that's a much bigger jurisdiction that they're looking at, a lot of the baseline information in the report I thought was really useful and helpful for our purposes. But they cited about 4 JPAs in California that they considered to be well-functioning JPAs. And so 2 of them are on this slide. The Sutter Animal Services Authority, they built a new shelter in 2013, is one. And the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter is another model where Santa Cruz County is the fiscal agent and employer of the employees. But they're undergoing a reorganization to spin out the JPA as a separate freestanding organization. And so that could be a potential model if we wanted to begin a full service JPA with the current county employees continuing as county employees, and then potentially spinning out to a separate freestanding JPA later. It could be an interesting perspective. 3 more possible jurisdictions, and these may be more ripe for site visits. Sacramento SPCA provides services in Sacramento. They're a major resource for Yolo in terms of spay and neuter services. And Sacramento SPCA chose to renovate and add on to their existing buildings rather than build an entirely new building, despite having enough land to actually build a new shelter without, just next to and then demolish the old one. So that could provide some interesting perspective on renovate versus build new. The Placer SPCA built a new shelter in 2016 in partnership with the city of Roseville. So that could be an interesting place to visit in terms of new construction and a public-private partnership. And the city of Tracy used a modular construction approach. So they have phases that they're going to tackle, one at a time, smaller chunks of renovations. And they're using partly prefabricated construction. So, stainless steel prefabricated building components. And I have some images of these jurisdictions. So this is Sacramento SPCA as a potential example of renovation and addition. This is a picture of the Placer SPCA that was more recently built in Roseville. And these are a couple of images of the city of Tracy. And so they used these prefabricated steel envelopes as kind of the structure for some of these buildings. And they kind of have a daisy chain of buildings that they've envisaged. And so that's a potential construction model that we could consider as well. So, and I can bring up any of those slides, but wanted to get feedback of the JPA if any of those other jurisdictions resonated, and you'd like to get more information from those jurisdictions, either as panel members or as site visit options.
Thoughts? I'm skeptical about Sutter, having seen it, not seen it, or not know anything about it, principally because we were providing fire service to a city in Sutter because they could not afford to maintain those fire services. Excuse me. So my point is simply that I'm skeptical if they have the fiscal wherewithal to put something together that's it's just a prejudice of mine I'm hearing right now. But Santa Cruz would interest me simply because they have such a mix of people, and including I think quite a homeless population as well, even though they're geographically distant.
So, Gary,
Uh-huh.
so as a number of these describe it as county employees, but it doesn't, and you've mentioned that one of them was their Health and Human Services Agency, and you're thinking put it someplace else into a new department. Are the others done by their law enforcement personnel, or are the others, where are the others, whose employees are the others?
So let's see. For Santa Cruz County, they are also, I believe, Health and Human Services employees. What I've found is that there's sort of natural homes for animal services as freestanding departments, so just one-off departments, as components of Health and Human Services, as components of law enforcement, like our sheriff's office, and sometimes of a community services department.
So I would that just sort of leads me to the idea that maybe 2 out of the 3, so we see different models in different homes on the county operation mode, if you will. And, 1 or 2 of the nonprofits, and of course, Sacramento would be very easy to pull off a day visit, but there's another distinction there of who built a new shelter versus who renovated. So that's another way to bracket it so that we're seeing different types of outcomes as to the specific locations. You know, I mean, the idea of doing some of this by virtual panels and saving a lot of travel and hassle for folks, I think is great. But I also wouldn't rule out a trip somewhere if my colleagues would like to go.
Welcome, Mayor
Stephanie,
Vega.
Stephanie, you know most of these operators. Are there ones that are particularly stand out to you or are particularly known to be successful?
I've spoken with, so El Dorado is when I spoke with the director there, and he actually worked down at Santa Cruz. So he has,
Oh.
he'll be able to share if he, you know, if you would like him to speak, he can share with both. And he was just telling me about, you know, they're going through, depending, like Joanne said, Health and Human Services has gotten too big. So they go back and forth. A lot of the reason why under Health and Human Services is the rabies control component. That's why, I think historically, that's where we were as well in the very beginning. And so that's why it gets shifted back and forth, because, you know, Animal Services prime function should be rabies control. And we sometimes forget that piece of it. Sutter, I know that my experience with them, we give them a lot of donated food. So, and they are extremely short staffed. So I know that piece. I don't know as far as how their operations are, but I do know they are very limited with, and their officers don't have the equipment. It's a pretty scaled down from what we are. And then I know as far as the nonprofits that Joanne had on here too, I've spoken with all, you know, they are close partners with us, but a couple of them are just humane societies. So they don't do they are just responsible for the sheltering piece, not the animal services piece. So it's, we are unique in that sense. I mean, Front Street, I think, is one that, you know, they do have their officers and they have, you know, the shelter together, which is important to have those that, you know, have that connection, especially in the community, like specifically Yolo County. You know, having officer involvement with the animals, with the cases, with the community is better, I believe, for everybody involved, instead of just dropping an animal and going. And that is what some of the other, you know, the other agencies that we're exploring, some of them do that. So, but I would, El Dorado, I think that is one that, and definitely Henry can shed some light on Santa Cruz, I think, as well. He shared that with me. But yeah, and SAC SPCA, they are one that, you know, speaking with their CEO, they overbuilt is what he, you know, when they pre-pandemic, and they're building these great cat rooms and all of this, and now they're in storage. So there's a middle ground, you know, so they, you know, it was nice to be able to walk through and he, you know, sharing these different types of cat enclosures, which were supposed to be great for, you know, the people to be able to see them, but cats don't like to be all seen, you know, just in this, it's pretty much a glass box. And so it's, you know, I've gleaned that kind of feedback, which is really nice to see those who have built and had, I'm not saying unlimited amount of resources, but they have quite a bit of monetary resources. And he said, if we were going to do this again, I wouldn't do it this way. So you know, he is someone who could really help with, you know, capacity for care, best practices, and we take it up a notch, but we don't need to be way up here and not use that space. So it's, you know, their owned animal clinic is phenomenal too. So it's just they really have encompassed everything. As far as they also get a lot of drop-offs from different agencies and rescues. So they have a lot going on as well.
So, Mr. Chair, I would just say, I would certainly welcome our public commenters when they have a chance to suggest which of these they would see, but also if there are things not on this list that they think we should think about, that would be welcome as well.
Sure.
And just from what I'm hearing so far, I think that a good combination could potentially be El Dorado County that could provide perspective on Santa Cruz, which was a freestanding JPA, well, not a freestanding JPA, a full service JPA that was a component of Santa Cruz County, and El Dorado County, which is currently part of a Health and Human Services agency, but considering a reorganization. And just echoing that it would be great to have input from the public as well.
All
So
right. Good.
that,
Any final questions or comments?
that's the end of my presentation. It would be a good time for public comment.
All right, with that, we'll open it up for public comment.
First, we have Robert Schabert.
Robert, welcome.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
It's like a little
fuzzy.
close on the microphone, I think.
Okay, any better if I back up a little?
Yeah, try that.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to bring a little different perspective to this. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for moving forward with the new shelter, something we drastically need in this county. I joined the Sheriff's Department back in 1975. Shortly after, the sheriff took over this from the Department of Agriculture. For so many years, the sheriff has done so much with so little. And it's only because we've had some extremely great talent like Stephanie at the helm here. I'm so glad to hear that we're actually going to move forward. I like the idea of maintaining the jurisdiction of the shelter under the sheriff with the JPA. And I think the idea of having some outside funding coming in is a terrific idea also. By the way, I'm also a board member from Unleashing the Possibilities. So I love the concept of bringing in outside money to help support this venture. And that's about all.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that perspective. All right, next.
We have Sally Ozenoff.
Sally?
Thank you
Welcome.
very much for the opportunity to address the group, and I reiterate what Bob just said, that it's very exciting to hear that you're interested in moving forward, and I fully support it. I was wondering if anybody on the JPA, perhaps Stephanie or others, know if these different shelters that you're considering visiting have indoor-outdoor kennels. I understand that that is one of the standards of care now, where dogs have access to the outdoors in their kennels, and then also they can be shifted to the outdoors while their indoor kennels are cleaned. And so I felt like that would be something really important that we could potentially visit, or you could potentially visit and see what those look like, because as a volunteer at the shelter, I think that having that capacity for our dogs would be really important, and I hope it would be part of the new design. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Good point. Next speaker,
Cindy.
Sydney, welcome.
And if you can unmute Cindy. Cindy, can you unmute, please, if you'd like to speak?
Is Eileen on there still, Joanne? I don't know if you could, who you could tell.
I don't see any additional hands raised after Cindy's.
Okay.
Sydney?
Ah, Cindy, you're unmuted.
Yes, sorry
Oh,
about
good.
that.
That's all
Yeah.
right.
I
Good.
just want to say, I want to look at, I mean, some people are interested in having law enforcement continue to be involved. And I'd like to also pose that let's look at it the other way as well. Let's do both way. I mean, you know, I don't know. I'm for the other way, but I just hope that you would consider that. And I've been to Sacramento SPCA. It's a wonderful facility. I support that organization because they do a lot of things good for animals. And I think That facility is great. The animals seem, all things considered, happy there. And that Front Street is also another really good shelter. And I think it's a great idea that we do a panel discussion and a visit. I'm glad that you brought that up. So I just want to say that.
Good. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
No additional hands. Oh, Eileen Sammons.
There she is. Okay. I knew she would appear eventually. Eileen?
Sorry, I thought my hand was raised. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Gary. Bless your heart. So yes, first of all, I have great concern about any thought that there might be less need at the shelter, because as someone who has worked with the feral groups over the last few years since I retired, I worked for 35 years at the Vet Med Teaching Hospital as a clinical microbiologist. And I want to get into that in a second about infectious disease that we need to be concerned about, not just rabies, but there are many reasons why we need an expanded shelter, and we will not need less services, because feral control alone needs a whole spay and neuter facility itself. I can tell you that much, because we've been trying to go through SAC SPCA, and they only limit to like 10 a day from the entire region. And so it is a competition. You got to get there 5 in the morning to get to try to get a cat neutered. And so the costs come back on the community if you don't have the spay and neuter facilities. It's a whole separate entity to do or workload to keep up with feral spay and neuters needed, as well as then the private spays and neuters that are the shelter cannot handle right now because it hasn't been funded, doesn't have the facilities, doesn't have the staffing. It's not the shelter's staff's fault. It's just it's been neglected for so long, and so I'm just telling you this: there is such a need and there's such desperation out here of trying to keep the feral cat colonies under spaying and neuter under control. There is not going to be less of a need. I'm just telling you right now. The other thing is, what about low cost vaccines, the lower cost spays and neuters for private people? Otherwise, they're not going to happen. And then you got to worry about vaccines, flea and tick control for public health. So there are so many reasons why we need to not try to delude ourselves with thinking that we're going to need less services because of the pandemic. The pandemic had some people stepping forward to help out with the raising the kittens to some extent, but guess what? Those people are burning out, and there's not enough help right now, and that's why the shelter's overwhelmed with kittens. So I just really want you guys to have a reality check, because I'm working in the field on this stuff, and I'm a volunteer, and I can't tell you how stressed out the volunteers are doing this stuff, and that this is why the JPA was formed. We need you guys to move forward, and the idea. One last thing, and I appreciate that Jim Provenza brought up this concept of the site is important, because one thing you need, as I was a planning commissioner as well at the city of Davis, I can tell you planning is important here, and location of a shelter is critical, because it can't go just anywhere, because you've got animals that make bark and whatever. You can't have that in the middle of a neighborhood. So the ideal location is where it is, and expanding it and doing whatever it takes to get it up to speed. As Jim said, that's a great idea. Let's see what we can do to kind of like have renovation for now. But we need the space in order to have whatever we're going to need, whether it be an incremental buildings or whatever. But I'm just telling you, we need to move forward, because these problems are going to come back on the county and cost anyway, because we're getting more and more animals that we can't keep up with keeping neutered, and that's in the private sector as well as in the feral colony community groups that are all volunteering their time and energy. So just please don't try to delude yourself that we're not going to need the services, because that's just not true. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Joanne, anyone else?
No additional hands raised.
All right, well, we thank everyone for calling in. We appreciate that input very much. With that, did that complete your report then, Joanne?
Yes. And so with the JPA's permission, I can seek a panel presentation with El Dorado County and SAC SPCA, if that is agreeable to the JPA.
It is to me. Dan?
Oops, sorry, I was muted myself. Yeah, that would be fun.
Jim?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
And Phil, perhaps you could, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily is the appropriate time to discuss now, but if the JPA was interested in making a site visit with the mechanics, or if we would need a subset of the JPA to achieve that.
No, we can do it with the full board. It's been quite some time since I've looked at how to arrange this under the Brown Act, but there are means of doing it. We would need to accommodate members of the public that want to join us, but it's very achievable.
Thank you.
And
Good.
Mr. Chair, I just would note that unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be present at the meeting at the end of August, which is at the end of our council break. But if you do a panel and it's recorded, I can always watch it, but I can't obviously be there for an in-person event in August.
All right, we'll require a note, Dan, but otherwise you'll be covered.
Yes, and the recordings are all posted to the YouTube channel at the end of the session. Is there any additional direction for staff from the JPA?
I don't think so. Not at this point. I think these timelines are very important to us, though, and obviously there's a lot of work happening under the surface that no one else is seeing in your staff meetings that you're having, Joanne, with city members, etc. And so that's important to recognize as well. But if we can get that put together for August or September, then we'll be better served and moving ahead. Jim, did you have any additional input?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I think the site visits can be very helpful. We did that with Delta Healthcare. We visited quite a few, and not only just to see the facility, but it's really a good way to gain an understanding of how different approaches might work. And it looks like we're moving forward on that one finally. But having those initial visits, I think Jill remembers those. They were quite helpful.
Good. All right. Any final thoughts then? If not, we'll take a look at reconvening on August 25th, right, Joanne?
Yes, and I will target that for our panel discussion. And I'm hoping the following meeting, September, I'm hoping we'll have the preliminary information from the architects updating things.
Yeah,
so that we can.
that's what I'm excited to see that as well. All right, good enough. Then we will make sure we get quorum, or we have a chance of getting quorum without the charming Mr. Carson present, and we will labor on as best we can in his absence if it's necessary. But otherwise, we may need to look at another meeting time.
And also the charming council member Chapman can also be here as my alternate. I will make sure he's aware of it.
Good point. All right. With that, if nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.